Today on The Report, we bring you a special election episode,
where we will be looking nationwide at the battleground states,
state propositions on your ballot,
and the student perspective on campus. The Report starts now.
Hello, I'm Jasmine Alvarez.
I'm Justin Rosette.
I'm Gabriela Machuca.
And I'm Noah Sakadas. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF or on our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our latest content.
As November 5th approaches, The Report correspondent Andrew Santos is giving us the scoop on what students have to say about this upcoming election. Here's Andrew with the latest.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Santos from The Report, and today we're here at Cal State Fullerton interviewing students about the upcoming election season. Hi, and how do you feel about general elections overall?
I think it's a really important civic duty. I was my high school's girl state representative, so being politically involved and politically active is really important to me.
Well, I'm pretty indifferent personally. I don't have a lot of opinions. I feel like I don't agree with like Republican or Democratic parties. I'm more like independent. I just kind of, I don't like the drama with it. I don't know, that stuff makes me really anxious.
To be honest, I'm not too politically inclined at the moment just because I'm too busy. But again, I'm still undecided.
And how do you feel about like the negative stigma that college students get around elections, saying that we're really not informed or that we never participate? How do you feel about that stigma that is placed on us?
I feel like that's really incorrect because not everybody is, especially like you have plenty of like opportunities to research things if you're interested. There's plenty of resources around campus if you want to get informed.
Honestly, I see a lot of college students that are very passionate about politics. I've seen them protest. It really just depends. Like for me, I'm not like them. So, it really just depends on the person.
As someone who is planning on voting this year, I always try to be as informed as possible, and nobody's perfect. So I think if we recognize that we're all human and that everybody has different ideas and different beliefs, that I think we can really combat that harmful stereotype.
That's it from me. Back to you guys in the studio.
In California, Proposition 2 aims to provide $8.5 billion to K-12 schools and $1.5 billion to community colleges. The funds would foremost go toward tending the condition of school buildings. Leaky roofs, broken air conditioning, and peeling paint are among the concerns that were cited. According to the Public Policy Institute of California, 38% of students attend schools that do not meet safety standards imposed by the state. These schools are more likely to have lower attendance rates, lower morale, and lower achievement, according to research. A section of the funds would be stored for removing lead from water, building transitional kindergarten classrooms, and constructing career and education facilities. California is a unique state in that the money for school repairs comes directly from state and local bonds. As of now, the state school repair account is practically empty. Similar props are on local county ballots. Measure L focuses on improving Fullerton Joint Union High School District. Measure N seeks Fullerton School District-wide repairs and upgrades. A full list of the two districts' proposed changes can be found on ocvote.gov.
Proposition 6 is targeted to amend the California Constitution. Currently, the state constitution outlaws slavery but maintains language that allows for involuntary servitude to be used to punish a crime. A vote yes on Proposition 6 will replace that language, outlawing the use of involuntary servitude under any circumstances. California would join over 30 other states that have eliminated forced labor in their state prison system. The Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation plans to instead issue credits to incarcerated people for the acceptance of voluntary work assignments during their incarceration. The bill was strongly supported by the Legislative Black Caucus, which is included as part of a larger package designed to move the state forward on reparations. Other top supporters include Courage California, ACLU California Action, the California Immigrant Policy Center, and the League of Women Voters in California. Though no official arguments have been made for voting no on Prop 6, experts are wary of the low-budget efforts to campaign for this proposition. A similar measure, named the, quote, End of Slavery in California Act, end quote, did not pass in 2022. Voting no would allow for involuntary servitude to continue to be allowed as punishment for crime.
Proposition 32 aims to raise the state minimum wage to $18 per hour by 2026. While California maintains a high minimum wage than other states, the current standard still puts workers earning minimum wage below the state average cost of living. Some industries in the state have secured union-negotiated wage increases over the last few years, including a move to $25 per hour for healthcare workers and $28 per hour for fast food workers. Recent estimates have shown that the minimum wage would be over $25 per hour if it had kept pace with economic productivity since the 1960s. Proponents of Prop 32 believing that voting yes will move California forward in closing this socioeconomic gap for workers and advance the earning power of workers who do not benefit from labor unions. Opponents of Prop 32 cite concerns on the negative financial impacts small businesses would experience, California's budget deficit becoming worse, and increases in personal costs overall. Will you vote yes or no on Prop 32?
Proposition 36 is opening dialogue about the future of criminal justice in California. Known as the Drug and Theft Crime Penalties and Treatment Mandated Felonies Initiative, Prop 36 aims to enhance penalties from certain drug offenses. A yes vote on the measure would see harsher penalties such as longer prison terms and select misdemeanors related to drug and theft convictions being turned into felonies. Additionally, individuals caught with illegal drugs would need to complete treatment or face up to 3 years in prison. Those backing yes on Prop 36 include Californians for Safer Communities, Walmart, and California Chamber of Commerce. A no vote on the measure would keep the same punishments that are currently in place for drug and theft charges. Those endorsing voting in opposition include ACLU of Northern California, Governor Gavin Newsom, and California Democratic Party, with significant backers on both sides of the measure and a divided political climate in the state. It is to be seen if Prop 36 is ratified this voting cycle.
Learn more about the remaining 6 propositions that are on your ballot at calmatters.org/voterguide2024/propositions. For Orange County measures, visit ocvote.gov/elections. What are poll watchers predicting for the U.S. at large? The report correspondent Kemni Nwosu joins us to cover the latest on the presidential race and more.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Starting with the national map, we can see our 7 swing states here. Currently, the standings of the electoral votes are 6 for Nevada, 11 for Arizona, 10 for Wisconsin, 15 for Michigan, 19 for Pennsylvania, and 16 for both Georgia and North Carolina. With 93 toss-up votes, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nevada are projected to go blue. On the flip side, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, all predicted to turn red. As of October 21st, in the race to 270, Democrats stand at 226 electoral votes, while Republicans stand at 219. Democrats need about 44 more votes and only 20 winning combinations to win 270. Republicans, on the other hand, need about 51 more votes for their party and 21 winning combinations. Now, let's move up to the House of Representatives race. Now, as you can see from this graphic here, all 435 seats are up for grabs for the House of Representatives. The current majority is Republican, and the consensus forecast that Republicans are anticipated to maintain their grip on the House of Representatives. Now, let's move on to the Senate race. Now, there are 34 seats open in the Senate, with the majority also being the Republican Party, with 49 seats as opposed to the Democrats' 47. Now, there are also 4 independent senators, but they are Democratic allies, and experts estimate that Republicans will take the lead. That's all I got for you guys over here. Now back to you at the table.
Thank you, Kemdi. So currently in the 2024 election, we're seeing a monumental moment in the country's history where we're seeing potentially the first Black female president of mixed Asian descent, or Donald Trump for a second term. Jasmine, what do you think about this?
You know, you bring up so many good points. It is going to be historical. It's monumental. This is one for the books for sure. I'm excited and eager, nervous, scared. There's a lot of mixed emotions there to see how this election is going to play out. I think it's important that we make sure everyone who can vote goes out and votes. And yeah, I'm excited to see if we're going to have our first female president or if Trump is going to get reelected. I mean, historically, we do see that presidents who have been president, obviously if they've already won previously, typically if they try to run for presidency, again, they typically win. So that is something that I'm keeping my eye on, just looking at statistics overall. But you never know. Things can happen. There's new generations coming in that are voting this time. Right. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited to see. What about you guys? What do you think?
Well,
sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that I think it's interesting that Trump didn't get a consecutive term, but he's back. Yeah. So what does that mean for us, right? And I am excited to see what happens for Kamala, although I am, as we all are, nervous to see what the output is from people and what states are going to swing where and ultimately who can win what. Because I think, as Kemdi has shared with us, we can see who's leaning where, but at the end of the day, it's until the 5th that we will know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think like you guys were saying, this is such a big moment in time. Like for me, this is my first time being able to vote for the presidential election. So it's kind of like, man, like, it's a really big deal. I'm really excited. I think also, like you said, nervous. I feel like, depending which way this vote goes, like the country could look like two completely different ways. Obviously if Donald Trump wins again, it's going to look one way. If Kamala wins, it'll look a completely different way. I think so far in the election cycle, we've seen what we usually see, people pandering to audiences that they need to, that maybe they weren't like last year, but now they kind of know, we got to get this vote. We've seen Trump making appearances places. Kamala's been on podcasts, like sports podcasts, just different audiences you have to tend to. Honestly, I don't know who's going to win. I think it's going to be very close. I think either way, it's going to be historical. It's definitely going to be one for the books. I think one thing that we can hope is that regardless, as it didn't happen last time, is that if one person loses, they can accept that and pass that on to the next person.
Right.
Either way, and not like, deny defeat or anything like that. I hope it goes well. There's no like drama with this election, no cheating scandals or anything like that. I just hope it goes well. But we'll see.
Yeah, definitely.
I think concerning the polls, which are usually assessing the election before, and what we've seen in the 2020 and 2016 election is that the polls have generally overestimated Democratic choice and Democratic vote. And in this election cycle, it's really not that case. Where we're seeing in swing states is we're seeing essentially tied neck and neck with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, or Trump is up by 1 or 2 points. And we're usually seeing that he's generally underrepresented, which is a really interesting fact. CNN even discussed the potential of Donald Trump having an increase in Black and Hispanic voters this election cycle. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's interesting. I think to touch on kind of what Justin was talking about, they're definitely catering to different demographics. I think they're trying to reach as many people as they can through their campaigns. So it's not too surprising, but I definitely think we're going to have to wait and see what the voter turnout looks like on the last day to vote. So I can't stress this enough. Get out there, make sure we vote. And it comes down to you, comes down to what you decide. And I'm excited to see what happens. Gabby, what do you think?
Well, I think that we have an interesting campaign overall, right? From the podcast to even Kamala, I believe, what was it? It was the Anti-Project 2025 campaign that went out on porn websites, right? And they're trying to get that demographic of young men. So it's definitely been interesting. I think they've tried some out-of-the-box things to try to win over certain demographics. So I want to see how the results show, right? Like, did it work? Did it not work?
I think when you talk about the Black and Hispanic vote, I think regardless of what people think about Trump, people have a lot of thoughts about him before he was ever a political candidate. His political thoughts have been out. Like you said, he's won before 8 years ago. People know where he stands with things. Whereas Kamala, I think people forget she just announced her candidacy a couple months ago. Right. And so she's such a late ad. And so I think a lot of people, you may expect Black voters to vote for her because she's part Black. But I think a lot of people may be seeing she maybe just got here, we don't know what she can really do. Whereas we've seen Trump be able to run some people may disagree, but be able to run the country at a good rate, I would say, for 4 years. And we don't know if Kamala can do that, And so I think one thing that was being used against her in a lot of debates is oh, you didn't do this, but it's she wasn't the president, Joe Biden was. So I think people may be doubting her ability as well because we don't know what she's done yet or what she can do. But I think a lot of people may just be seeing it as we've seen Trump run the country, and I don't know if Kamala can because it's such a late ad. She has to say these things, but we don't know if she can really do that. So
You bring up some really good points about how Kamala Harris was kind of a late addition into the presidential race, whereas before, during the Democratic primaries, the choice was still overwhelmingly Joe Biden, and then there was the results of the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and then unfortunately his popularity dropped incredibly, and then he ultimately resigned after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. And so what we saw yes, a very late addition of Kamala Harris. And so what you're telling Democrats in the United States is they have to suddenly switch their support, where we were being told that it was Joe Biden, he was going to be the president, he was going to run for another term, and now we're having to shift support and shift all of this popularity over to another candidate who was not democratically chosen. It was selected by the party. So I think there's I agree with you. There's some hesitancy there, and there's some suspicion of like, what is she going to follow through with the exact same ideals and beliefs as Joe Biden, or does she have her own agenda? And it's been difficult. She's been going on podcasts, of course, as we discussed, to try to garner some support from the younger generation, the demographics that don't really participate in politics. Like she's been. You discussed on they had the was it 2025 Project 2025 on porn sites, and just going on the Call Me Daddy podcast, which has been is the #1 rated podcast. So she's really trying to put herself out there right now to garner those big votes. I think it's going to be a really interesting election cycle, and I think we're going to see some really big changes. Yeah.
All right, guys, so transitioning to another part of the election, which is the props. We talked about Prop 2, which is going to be the government giving $8.5 billion to different colleges and $1.5 billion to other schools. Jasmine, I'll come to you first. What are your guys' thoughts about this large amount of money being given to improve school facilities?
I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal. I know that sometimes when we hear that we're going to have to be giving more to taxes, it is scary. It's definitely... As a taxpayer, it's definitely like, oh no, they already take so much out of my check. I don't want to. But also as a student, it's so great to see that we're going to have improvements going to schools, specifically for schools that are more impoverished or in impoverished areas. I think it's great. And, we do see statistics show that schools that are not as well maintained show that there's a decline in the student performance. And so I want to see, hopefully, schools that have these issues, whether it's, mold or leakage or whatever it is, or just upgrading facilities, which is giving them new and improved equipment. That is so beneficial. And I'm really, really hopeful that the students will take advantage of these opportunities and really just excel and shine, because I think that's really what the hope is. But I think it is also... I can also see why some people have concerns over it. I know that sometimes even when we provide better equipment and better opportunities for these impoverished areas, they're still vandalized or sometimes not really taken advantage of. So I could see both sides, but I think just because of fear, we shouldn't let that stop us from helping. So I'm really, really excited for it. What are your guys' thoughts?
I definitely think it's really important. So I have the lived experience of working at a school that was underfunded. And it made me realize how privileged my childhood was. And I was honestly shocked to realize that. Because I remember my first few days, I would deal with the kids, and it was this whole fight every day of like, we don't have enough equipment. We literally did not have enough balls. If a kid threw the ball over the fence, it was gone. And we were down to like our final 3. And the kids would cry. And I remember there was even one day where they were like, oh, okay, go to the playground to pick up so-and-so. Where's the playground? There was no swings. There were no slides. It was literally just the grassy patch. And the kids were misbehaving. I really think it was because they were bored. And this was something that as faculty, they would also talk to us about how the students were misbehaving because there just wasn't enough for them to do. So I have the lived experience of seeing these poor kids not have enough resources, even just to play, not necessarily beyond the classroom. And I'm sure that their actual classrooms weren't the best environment either. So I think it's very important because I think of those kids all the time. And I realized like how lucky I was as a kid.
Sure.
I think this is a fantastic proposition that I hope goes through. If you've ever met anybody that's out of state, where do they think of, or what location do they think of when you mention California? You're thinking of the cities, you're thinking of maybe the national parks, you're thinking of the wealthier areas. But what a lot of people don't realize is there's a lot of really underfunded areas and regions in the east of California that get nothing. And of course, you guys talked about they're extremely underdeveloped. So if this were to go through, I'm glad that they're actually going to share in some of the wealth and be able to fix up their school system so that they can actually properly educate these kids and give them a good career path for the future.
Yeah, I think $8.5 billion is a lot of money, and it's $10 billion when you combine the community college amount as well. But I think this is one of those things where it has to be worth it. I mean, like you said, with like younger kids and also just like college students, being able to have a good experience in school, being able to just perform, because like as we said, students are able to perform better as well in school when they do have like better facilities. So I think this is one of those things that's worth it, and I hope it's able to come to be as soon as possible and just help people be able to go through the school system with better resources, better materials, and just be able to better go through college and beyond.
So going back to Prop 6, I think it's important and I think it's interesting that unanimously we have this proposition with near unanimous votes, I should say. But a similar measure didn't pass in 2022. What do we think this will turn out this time around in terms of votes?
Well, I think one of the fundamental issues here is that the original proposition, the one from 2022, was called like End of Slavery, the End of Slavery Act. And the problem with that narrative is that it's not agreed upon by all of the groups that are reaching out and trying to end the manual labor within the prison system, that this is the proper way to go about this, because a lot of the groups, especially a large section of the Black Caucus, just want to eliminate the prison system as a whole and get rid of it. And so I think what there is there's a divide within the groups ACLU, California Action, and the Immigrant Policy Center about what is the proper path, or if one group doesn't agree, then it's a no-go and there's not wide support across the board. I think that's generally the issue here, is that there's one side here that wants to totally reform the prison system, there's one that wants to get rid of it, and then there's one that just wants to get rid of the manual labor. So I think the activist groups have to reach a middle ground in order to find what is the right path in continuing on, because obviously, let's be honest here, this is not slavery. A lot of these people were criminals, and this is like a part of the process so that they can eventually get out of the system and be released back into society. It's manual labor. That's what it is. And if not, then what are you doing back in the prison? Like, you're just like standing around and cleaning up the jail cells, cleaning the toilets. Like, what is the alternative is what I'm asking. What do you think?
I think that's a great question. I think the alternative should be mental health services. I think it should be therapy. I think it should be education. I think it should be reforming prisoners versus just having them enslaved. I do hear what you're saying, and I think those are great points. However, I also see the opposition, and I know how the prison system has been skewed and how it has been abused and how it has been used to incarcerate for a lot of misdemeanors and a lot of people who do not deserve to be in prison. And quite frankly, a lot of the prisons are overfilled and overflowing, and there's just not enough space, not enough room. The prisoners are literally living in unlivable conditions. We are giving them food with mold in it. I mean, these are horrible conditions. And so I do hear what you're saying. And I know we don't want them to just be sitting around. They're criminals. And I do hear that, but I also empathize because they are still human beings. And I think we have to believe in reform. We have to believe in, hopefully, obviously I don't want, horrible offenders out on the streets. I do not want that. I obviously want our streets safe, but I do believe that we need to be able to push for education and for reform for them to be able to get classes and maybe get jobs that will teach them, jobs that will give them opportunities when they actually leave the prison. Because a lot of them, once they leave, they don't know what to do or where to go, and they don't have enough jobs that will actually take them in. So I think that's a great question, but there's a lot of solutions that we need to come up with.
You bring a lot of good points up. Do you know that California and the majority of prisons actually across the United States used to have self-reliant food farms that they would essentially harvest their own crops, and they had livestock on the property. And what happened in the 1980s during the Reagan administration is they moved over to having that be controlled by the state and bringing in their own food. So a lot of those issues you're thinking a lot of these issues, unfortunately, are coming from government reformations. And now what we're doing is we're having to go back to the board and basically transform the system again because it didn't work a previous time.
Right.
So I understand what you're saying about how these prisoners, some of them are living are unfortunately in unlivable conditions. But the thing is here is this is California. We are one of the most tolerant states in the union. And I just don't see like this massive like mistreatment of prisoners on a wide scale in California, especially when everything is so monitored and human rights are advocated for on such a large scale. I'd like to see evidence of that before I fully invest in the idea of the reformations currently in the California prisons, because this is Prop 6, this is California, this is not across the country.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that, that's all we have time for today.
You can find your local polling station at vote.org/polling-place-locator.
Vote in person at the Titan Student Union or drop off your ballot at the on-campus ballot drop box in parking lot G.
We'll see you next time on The Report. And remember to vote!